Great. So let's play together. This is the first phrase, the first 7 bars of Andante Festivo. For right now, we're going to play it very straight. No speeding up, no slowing down, just right in tempo. Here we go. Great. Did you feel the first note wasn't quite, we were locked in by like measure 2. So let's do it one more time. Even though the tempo right now is very square, the dynamics don't have to be. So strong first note, full dynamics. 2, 3. If you would start right on measure 4, okay? Measure 4, it's pretty much the end of the crescendo. If you could make sure that those tied half notes sustain, right? So we start on measure 4. That half note will be the biggest volume we have, but it's not going to fade away. Here's measure 4. Ready? And. While we're tapering away that phrase at measure 6, can we think of just having a little bit of accent on that 8th note? B, da, da, da. So it doesn't just kind of get colored over. Okay? You could think of it as a left-hand accent, like give it just an extra volt of vibrato so we don't lose it. This is just measures 6 and 7. Measure 6 and 7. Ready? And. Good. If we think of it with the left hand and not with the right, okay, the goal is that it's a very smooth thing. So we don't like hear da dee okay, but we want it to be precise. So the left hand can kind of give it that precision, while the right hand can just keep the paintbrush moving. Measure 6 one more time. Ready. That's lovely. That's lovely. Going back now to measure 4, where we were just a second ago, on those tied half notes, I think we're all down bow. I could be wrong, but I think we're all down bow on that 3, 4, 1, 2. What I'd like to try is purposefully use a little bit slower bow at the beginning of the note. Because we're at the frog, so the weight is on our side. We can be closer to the bridge. We can control that. And then when we get to beats 1 and 2, then we can spend a little bit more bow. So we're going to start at measure 4, and we're going to have this down, up, down. And what I meant to do with my voice, but was not pretty, was show that I was spending more bow at the end of the note. Here's measure 4, one more time. Measure 4, and it's building. 3, 4. 1, 2. All right, the whole first phrase now. With music still, but see if you have it memorized. Maybe you do. 3. If you think you have it memorized, flip the stand. Turn the stand, I should say. Flip would make the most. Okay? Okay? You are absolutely allowed to use your music. This is purely voluntary. If you think you have it memorized, first phrase again. I want you to do it without me, because with no push pull, we can keep it. So I will give the, and then I'm going to go away. We go first phrase. Very nice. It's really lovely. I'm glad it sounds good because we're going to do it a few more times. Here's what I would like to try now. We're not going to keep the tempo quite the same. Okay? I would like us, I'm not going to use the word rush because that's almost like a swear word in orchestra. But let's say we're going to. I'm so like, orchestra teachers are like so trained to say like F natural is always low and all this thing, like always use more bow. And anyways, we're gonna energize like measures 3 and 4. Like we're so excited about that half note at measure 4 that we just can't help ourselves but go a little bit. And then where it's gonna kind of release is at the end of 6 and 7. Dee da 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 dee da da dee da 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 da. Okay, if we were a choir, we would have our hands free. Okay, I love when choir directors do this, but they have their hands free because they're singists, right? They would say like, imagine you've got like 5 rubber bands between your hands, and when we're speeding up, it's like you're pulling the rubber bands apart. But if you're acting on the rubber bands this way, what are the rubber bands doing to your hands? They're pulling, they're resisting, right? And so it takes some strength, and then we let them back in, and that's the feel that we want, okay? So, go again. This is the last time with music. If you're still using music, try to commit it to memory this time, so that after this we can do it without. Here we go. Now let's experiment. Okay, no music. Front row. We're not gonna break the distancing rules. So you're going to stand up, and then you're gonna come to the other side of your stand and face rows 2 and 3. Okay, so go ahead, front row. These 6. Okay, you're gonna stand. You're gonna face. And now, like, if you need to turn your stand, like, that's honor system. Okay, but what I want to happen, I'm gonna come back here. Okay. I want you to follow the bows at the front of the room. Okay? Now, people at the front of the room, you may, like, I don't know if you want to, like, stagger a little bit or whatever makes this less awkward, but you're going to kind of check in side to side. Okay? So that if you're, like, speeding up, you're not, like, outrunning the rest of the room. Okay? But I want us to play this first phrase as think of yourselves as a quartet that just quadrupled in size. But you're following each other's bows and you're taking visual cues to create this phrase together. Okay, so I'll give the prep to the front row, but everybody who's got their back to me, you're going to count on them kind of visually prepping so you know where it is. Here we go.
Are we all playing?
Yes, everybody plays. It's the same first phrase. It's just a different thing. Here we go. spots where the precision is a little bit mushy. Okay? The first spot is measure 1, beat 3. Okay? And we will assign blame equally to everybody except the cello, because she just has a whole note. Okay? So if you're a bow change person on beat 3, we need some visual prep when you turn that corner so that we all know it's time to do it together. Let's try just measure 1 plus the first note of measure 2. Okay? Here we go. Try a little less bow on those quarter notes. Da, dee, da. You can be as heavy into the string, as close to the bridge as you want, but less side to side motion, so it doesn't drag. Here we go. Same thing. Good. And that, if you forgot, we were just doing those 3 notes, which is great. Do the whole first phrase again. The other spot where it was mushy was after the 4-beat top. So you get to that peak, da, da, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Move into that quarter note after that long note. Does that make sense? I know we don't have music in front of us, so if we do it and need a do-over, that's allowed. But let's try that first phrase. Here we are. Front row people, thank you for doing that. You can have your seats back now. Anybody who would like their music back can turn it around. This isn't like, I know for those of you who are here when we did Chike Serenade in fall of 2019, which now seems like a really long time ago, I know like we would do things like this, and some people would ask, like, are you getting ready to like spring something on us? I'm not. Like, this isn't my way of building up to being like, yeah, memorize it, or I'm not going to conduct. Like, it's just purely to see what we can do. Okay. Now, for those of you who will conduct at some point, like if you're a music ed major or you end up like leading your own group at some point, string players have a natural advantage because this is just a bow, right? Like once upon a time, like it was a bow. Like Haydn and all of them would just play whatever part. Haydn would play whatever part he didn't have a good musician to play. So he would like the king or the duke or whoever would be like, here's your orchestra. Like, oh, none of you are viola players? Okay, I'm a viola player today. But this just became a smaller and smaller bow until it was, easy to do this. So the joke, because you want a good music joke, it goes like this. So there was a kid who wanted to be in our symphony orchestra real bad, but he couldn't really hear, so we just gave him 2 sticks and said, you be the drummer. And then the next day he lost one of the sticks, so all he was good for was conducting. Yeah, you can have that. That's for free. Conductor jokes are the ones that bring us all. You start telling viola jokes or cello jokes, and somebody starts getting mad. You tell conductor jokes, and everybody can just join in. All right. Now that we have our music back, let's start at the beginning. We're going to do the first 2 phrases. So we're going to make it to measure 14. Okay? And we're going to see how they're different. Obviously, if you go on to measure 15, you know it's different. But let's see, with this idea of stretching our rubber bands, what we can make difference between the first and second phrases. We're at the beginning. So At measure 14, the most obvious sign that this is different is that the melody doesn't go down. Dee, da, 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 finishes that first phrase. It goes up, dee, da, 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 which is kind of a hint that we're not putting a period at the end of this sentence yet. What else? Is there anything else written on the page that makes phrase 2 different from phrase 1? The crescendo. Good. So at 6, when we taper, it's very natural. We almost don't have to think about it. We do think about it because we're smart, but we almost don't have to think about it. At 13, we really do need to consciously come down. Otherwise, we don't have room to grow. Right? Every crescendo starts with a shh. There's a really bad play on words about how like the sh sound is in the middle of crescendo, but it's at the beginning. So, good. Now, I want us to do a little bit more of the pushing. Like I feel like we're not like pushing forward as much during those quarter notes the way we talked about. And I'm struggling with my fogging glasses, so if you're lost or anything, like please don't try to tell me with your eyes because you're just kind of dots through the fog right now. So raise your hand or anything like that. Let me try those first 2 phrases again. And really, I would almost be okay with us like falling apart if it meant that like we tried to push it along more and just didn't quite get it. Here we go. For the sake of just, we're going to kind of work on something that we can all then apply. So everybody who's not a cello player, stand up. Okay? Now, you're going to pick any open string because it just doesn't matter which string you do this on. If you're a violinist and you choose E string, just be where you may be responsible for like any hearing loss you sound because we're going to play like really loud in just a second. But what I want you to do right now, I'm going to face you so you can hear my voice, okay? I want you to feel your weight equally 50-50 between left and right foot. And you just like, we all have like Suzuki foot position, all that. Just you're there, you want to bend your knees a little bit. Now I want you to just kind of feel the weight transfer as you go foot to foot. This is something very natural. I'm probably making it harder just because I'm asking you to think about it, but like able-bodied human beings just do this. Now, I want you to, in just a second, we're going to play just half-note strokes on an open string, and I want you to consciously transfer your weight opposite the bow. So, on a down bow, you're going to put the weight into the left foot and then into the right on the up bow, and you're just going to balance, right? What did Isaac Newton say? For every action, there's an opposite and equal. equal or not, I don't know. But the logic goes, and it's not a myth, like it's real. If we put more weight into the down bow, there's a limit to how much we can do before we lose our balance. So if we counter it, now I have this transfer of weight that I can add to my down bow and my up. Okay? Cellists and bassists can do this too. It's just more of like a side to side thing. Okay? So pick a string, set it to frog, and we're just going to do down bow, up bows on the open string, and it's the motion, the rounded motion that we want. Ready? Here we go. Let's try it all at the same speed. If you don't actually go frog to tip, that's okay, because we're just going to go down, up, at that speed. So you may not use the entire bow, just a big free sound. Ready, set, from the frog. Nice, and it should, like, you could almost like put it on autopilot and it would keep going. Now, go ahead and have a seat. Okay. Find for me, oh, we're going to do letter B. We're going to do letter B. And everybody has some kind of half note. And what I mean by that is like a 2-beat note. For the first violins, it's da, da, dee, da. So like half note, or chord, or for the cellos, basses, and seconds, you just literally have 2 beats for both. All right? So here we go. Letter B. Think of that side-to-side motion anywhere you have 2 beats to a bow. Letter B. 1, 2, here we go. How many of you have heard of, this will be our last thing for now, we'll take a break. How many of you have heard of Itzhak Perlman? Well-known violinist. He's getting up there in years. So if you get a chance to go see him, go, because every chance may be your last chance. But Itzhak Perlman, Israeli violinist, wonderful violinist, beautiful human being, which is important too. But he had polio as a kid, and he can't walk. He can't use his legs. Now he goes everywhere. It's really cool. He has one of those like motor scooters, and he like rolls out on the stage, and then his seat turns 90 degrees, and he plays violin. But when he was a student, and he studied with, among others, a famous violinist named Jascha Heifetz, one of the great violinists of 20th century who died too young and all that. But you know, Jascha Heifetz will talk about when you go up these phrases, up these lines, you push your feet deeper into the ground so that like you become taller like a firmly rooted tree. Like it's some beautiful image. Well, for Itzhak, that wasn't going to work. Okay, so Itzhak Perlman tells his students, I am not one of his students. I got this from YouTube. Because anybody can be his student on YouTube. But when you go up a line, like I'm looking at the first violin part at 35, just going up that G major scale to that D. If you will arch your back. It's a very simple thing to do. But if you look at like the domino effect of it, okay, you've got your fiddle here. If you arch your back, what happens to the scroll of your instrument? It goes up, right? If your instrument suddenly is inclined up, first of all, you really look like, I mean, you're just a musical star. Like, look at me play this phrase, okay? But if my bow is here and my instrument goes up, gravity will help me go this way. So it's a musical look, like we're showing the musicality of the phrase, but we're also like literally strengthening our sound by just letting gravity move the bow. Now, we may not all have the first violins, do, re, mi, fa, so, but we can all at 35 make that phrase. And I'll tell you, at 36, the people who have the most important notes there are not the melody, the second violins. Okay, second violins at measure 36, those accents over those quarter notes, I believe that's the only place Sibelius put accents anywhere in this whole piece is where that happens. All right, so we're going to go out letter B. We're going to sway with the weight of our notes. When we get to that peak at 36, we're all just going to raise our noses up in the air with confidence and have a really strong sound. Then we'll take a break. Here's letter B. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there, so that when we come back from the break, you'll be so excited to hear the cello solo. Go and have a good break.